Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn, and welcome to another episode of The Chamber Within. Today, I want to talk about a saying that Abraham Hicks often brings up, which is, "You are the creator of worlds." Now, if you're not familiar with Abraham Hicks, it is an entity that Esther Hicks channels, and she is in the spiritual community as a channeler. And there are many YouTube gatherings where she speaks in front of crowds. Um, Giving all this great advice about how to be um, more of a conscious creator in your world. Now, it gets said so often during their gatherings, and it finally hit me the other day. In the back of my mind, it came up, and I was like, oh, this is what it actually means. At first I'm thinking in a sense like while in spirit, we create worlds like adventures or perhaps scenarios that we loved while we were in form, much like dream states, but not so. What they are referring to are our own personal worlds that we live in here and now. Like it's so pervasive, you don't really think of it that way, but they're the stories that we tell ourselves on a daily basis. Who we are, how we identify in this world, and all the storylines that go along with the thoughts we think, like what we tell ourselves. And because, as you know, what we tell ourselves on a daily basis is oh so important. You know, the thoughts affect how we feel, and how we feel affects what we do, how we act. Now, how we act then governs our life that we live. You follow me? Right? Because if we were to back up, like really zoom outward and look at ourselves as a character in a video game, we can then begin to see our daily thoughts that then lead to our actions, which colors the lives that we have set up. Kind of like a sim, if you're familiar with that. So, in other words, the world that we have created for ourselves. So, okay, let's take an inner look at your world. Did you do something radically different from yesterday or the day before that, or going so far back as, I don't know, a week? Now, typically, when something happens out of the ordinary, it sets us off. It can ruin our day or at least irritate us. It happened to me today, actually. My daily routine was temporarily disrupted and I didn't like it. It is said that we are creatures of habit. So, more importantly, what I'd like to do right now is to reframe this. We are the creators of our own world. That's what being an adult is all about, right? Having the ability to choose. Now, where we get stuck sometimes is believing that we are without choice or limiting our choices because of how we perceive our reality. You know, I saw a quote the other day that said, "The sky isn't the limit, your belief system is." Now, I don't know who said that, but it really hit me because I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I was thinking to myself a year ago, I'm so alone and have no one to talk to. Lies. Lies. That was a creation of my own mind, my limited belief system at the time. I am not alone, and there is always someone to talk to, somewhere out there. Here's a quick story time. Years ago, I remember waiting tables and speaking with the bartender. She had worked her way up from waiting tables to being behind the bar. Um, she had worked at the restaurant before I arrived, and at this time, I was about 4 years in, and I was ready to leave the business for good. I saw people moving on and getting jobs that they really loved, and figured it was my time to spread my wings as well. I was motivated to change. I had asked her what she'd like to do if she were to leave, and she said to me with a straight face, "This is the only thing I know how to do, Dawn." And that made me feel really sad because she was a single mom and had been on her own since she was a teenager. She was great with people, and the staff loved her. She could literally do anything she set her mind to. I was sad because she thought she couldn't do any better in this life. For her, this was the sky. Now, don't get me wrong, it's great money. It's a very, very nice restaurant, but there were days where she herself had wished she didn't have to do the job she was so accustomed doing day in and day out. This is what Abraham Hicks would call fighting for your limitations. I love that perspective because it is just that. I know I was a master at shrinking my own self. Minimizing the self and saying you couldn't ever be more than what you currently are is so far from the truth. If only you'd allow yourself to see clearly. Now, I know change is uncomfortable. If there is a change to my daily routine at work, it irks me because of all my time constraints. Like I mentioned earlier, any hiccup disturbs my rhythm. But lately I've thought to myself, so what? Perhaps this is necessary. For what reason? I don't know. I let it go. I don't try to put reason behind it, but I was like, maybe it's necessary for a greater a greater reason than I can understand right now. I'm learning how to not try and judge so harshly what's happening and respond in the typical manner when things don't go my way. You know, this means I can't predict the outcome as easily, but maybe there needs to be a different outcome entirely. Perhaps I should be moved to discomfort in order to change my personal world. Now, that is not a comforting idea because that means I need to move, I need to do something different. But so oftentimes, that's what it takes for us to change our life, for us to be so uncomfortable in our current situation and to say, you know what? I'm going to move. I'm going to do something different to have the different life that we may daydream about. I know I'm guilty of that. When something traumatic happens, they call it uprooting your life. Or for me, since I love plants, it could be reframed as replanting of this life in a new pot with better soil, maybe some fertilizer and watering conditions. It takes some getting used to, but in the long run, it's much needed. In hindsight, right? To have new experiences, grow new leaves, perhaps even flower. All right, I'll stop with the metaphors because I could do this all day. We create, yes, we do, but often out of desperation. But what if we did it out of inspiration? You can look back and say, I didn't think I could, but I did. I did this thing and I'm so proud of. It's a great feeling, and yet it's so easy to let ourselves down. As for me, that was like a bad habit. It was easier for me to keep a promise to someone else rather than to myself. Like no accountability, no repercussions. You know what? I forgive myself for not exercising. You see how easy that is? I could do it another day. So even though I work full time and podcast once a week, I do have something I have been avoiding that I will add to my list of to-dos to kind of get it off my list. Now, this task will take me probably an hour, give or take, but it's so new to me that it feels like a huge task, like a big boulder in my way. And I'm making a big to do about it because it's not part of my daily ritual. As I look over to my left, my desk and my calendar, this task was actually supposed to be done on the 4th of January, and it was originally moved from November. Yeah, I procrastinate pretty hard, but I need to do it. So let's create together. What's something that you want to see changed or have the needle move just a bit in your own life so that you can begin to change your situation, create a better life? You can add it to the comments on my YouTube page, or as always, you can email me at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com. I'm always open for questions or comments on the current episode or previous. But I want to be better at creating my world, and this is your sign, if you want it to as well, to create your own. Thank you all for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.